Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we are going to be working on separating the front end from the back end of our app. This will clean up the code a bit and make sure everything is as concise as possible so that we don't have to search around for functions. Everything will be in just one place, so that's really cool and something that you should always try to do. We'll also finish up our auth system because right now we are logging in, but we aren't changing a screen. So this lesson will guarantee that when you are logged in, you go and move on to the main part of the app. So yeah, let's do it. Before carrying on with the video, I just want to let you know that only around 20% of you guys are actually subscribed to this channel. So if you don't want to miss any single video in the future, be sure to subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Okay, so here we are. First things first, I'm going to show you the package that we'll be installing. Go to pub.dev/packages/provider, and this is the package which we'll be using in order to wrap our whole application and make sure that every screen knows what's the state of the user, what is our user basically, and get all of the information from just one place rather than having to manually pass around the user's data from widget to widget. So this is really cool. So let's install it. Just copy the provider. You have a button here to copy it. Go onto pubstack.yaml and paste it in here. I'm actually going to do one other thing while I'm in here. I'm going to move the Firebase core and Firebase auth to dependencies because we don't want them in dev dependencies. I'm not actually sure why I placed it. In dependencies, everything builds when it is for production and while testing. For dev dependencies, it is just the dependencies that you use for testing and development. For example, for unit testing packages, things like that. Things that you only use while developing the app. Okay, so there we go. Now it installed because when you save it, it automatically runs Flutter pub-get. So yeah, we are done. Now in here, and before getting on with the code, we are going to create a series of packages which will allow us to easily structure out the project. So the first one is services. And in services, we'll have all our code, all our HTTP requests, or better yet, Firebase requests. They all will be in here in separate files so that everything is nice and organized. Then we'll have our screens, and screens will contain all of our widgets. So everything that's widget related will be in our screens, except for main, that will stay in lib, in the lib folder. So let's move off to screens, and there we go. Then finally, we'll have our models. Our models are just our objects if you think about Java, and most people are related to that. Models are our objects. For example, we'll have our user model in here, our post model in here, and these are files, or better yet, models that are used a lot. So it is good to have a folder specific for them so that we don't lose track of it and it is easy to get to. So right now, let's move the code over to our services. For this, we are going to create a new file called auth.js, .dart, better yet, I'm sorry about that. And in here it is auth. Okay, and this will contain all of the requests made for the user. So any login action, any sign out action, any action to do with getting users' information will go through here. So in this case, it is a simple class, and I'm going to call it authService. And this authService will contain, again, everything that has to do with the user. So for this, I'm going to go into our screens, into signup.dart, where we have these functions which we created in the past lesson. So I'm going to grab, for example, the signup action, and I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to simplify the name, so I'm going to just call it sign in, and it will be receiving the email and the password. There we go. Now, as you can see, Firebase Auth has not been imported, so I'm going to hover over it, click on Quick Fix, and an option to import it will appear, making it really easy. Okay, so now in here, I'm going to move the create user with email and password to the same line, just make everything a bit tighter. And I'm going to change this into the variable that we have at top called auth. Okay, now it should load again just fine. And this is trying to go in the line below, but don't worry. And now in here, instead of user credential, I want to get the user. The user is a Firebase object, which we'll be using in order to get all of the user's information from Firebase. However, we see that it is underlined, and this is because we must cast this function into user. So you do this by wrapping this await in parentheses and then saying as user. Okay, as easy as that, then we get all of the user's data. Okay, so now we want to, first of all, create a model which will take in all of the user's information. So let's do it right now. And for that, I'm going to say user.dart, create it. And for now, it will be a really simple class, which will just take in the user's ID. Obviously, in the future, it will evolve into something bigger. But for now, let's just go with this. I'm going to call it user model. Open parentheses, say final string ID, and now we have our constructor. This constructor, and in Dart, you can create it like this, which when you just give the this.id, for example, you don't have to then open up curly brackets and do this.id equals to ID like you do in Java. You can simply say this.id and it will automatically assume that this variable will be for this one. So it is really awesome, and it cuts on boilerplate code, which is always nice. Okay, then coming back, and now we have it almost ready. However, instead of void, it will be a future, because we'll make a request and we aren't sure when we are going to receive the result from it. Okay, so now we are going to actually create yet another function, which will be of the type user, which will return the type user. And this function will create the user from the Firebase data. So it will be just responsible for that, and I'm going to call it user from Firebase user. And now we pass along the user, which is from the Firebase, this type, which comes from Firebase. We open up curly brackets, and here we say return user. Different from null, different with just one equal. There we go. Interrogation point, and I'm going to explain this in a second, so don't worry. User model ID 2 points user.uid. 2 points null. And what does it do? Well, it simply whenever you call this, which will be right in here, so user, then we'll go to this function, and in this function we'll return, if the user is not null, then we'll return the user model with the ID, the UID from the user. If it is null, then we'll just return null. It is as simple as that. It is basically an if-else. So this is a simpler way of doing it. Okay, so right now it should be working, but yeah, in here it isn't user, it is user model, because that's our function right here, our class, but yet it is called user model. So right now we have to import it, go to quick fix, import library, and it should import without any problems. So there we go. And now we want to do the same thing for sign up, for example, and in here it is sign in, it should be sign up, because it is creating user with email and password, obviously. Then we want the sign up, the sign in, yet. So let's come in here and say sign in. And we want to sign in with email and password, just like we did before. And we are also going to parse the user from Firebase object, from Firebase user in here. So yeah, it should be really simple. I'm going to remove this if and just print E. This is for testing purposes. Obviously, if it is for production, then these prints should be removed. But yeah, for now, they can be there just for us to debug it more easily. Okay, so now that we have all of this, we want to go into signup and simply remove these functions because we aren't doing anything with them. We are going to simply call on our functions from our provider. Right now it shouldn't work because we still haven't created the stream which will allow every single widget to access the auth.darts data, but we will in a second, so let's do it right now. So the first thing that we have to do is come at top and say final of service, then underscore of service, and we are going to say that this is equal to of service. We are just creating an instance of the of service class so that we are free to use it right now. Then we go down below and on press, we are going to simply call on the functions that we want. So in the case of signup, it will be of service dot signup, and it takes in an email and password. So that's what we are going to pass along, email and password. There we go. And we are going to do the same thing for the sign in. So let's come in here and do this. Okay. So now we should be able to call upon these functions with no issues. It should be working. We are able to remove this package because remember, we don't have any logic in here. We are just making calls for other functions. Okay, so now we want to go into auth.dart because we want to, whenever a user logs in, for this page to change right away. So this is done by creating a stream in here, and that stream will move on to a wrapper that we'll have in main.dart, which will see if the user is logged in or not, and depending on that, show a route or another route. The routes being the off-system route and the main system route. So in here, we will simply have a stream, which will pass along a user model, and it will get user, get like so. Now we are going to open up curly brackets, move inside, and we are going to make a listener for the off state of the app. So if the user is logged in or not, if the user logs out, if the user logs in, then this function will be triggered. And we'll return an auth.state of state changes. These of state changes, again, is the listener which will trigger anytime the user state changes. So if he logs in or logs out. Then we are going to map this information into our user from a Firebase user. So we can simply do it like this, user from Firebase user, and we can remove the parentheses in here. So add the comma after. And this is because whenever you are just passing along a variable like this, you don't have to implicitly say user and have like an arrow function in here saying user open arrow like this. You don't have to have this. You can simply pass along this function and it will automatically assume that you want to pass along the user variable. So that's what we are going to do, like so. Okay, now we have our stream. Now all that's left is to go into main.dart and actually use it. Because in here we'll be wrapping everything in our stream so that every widget down below will get the information from it. Okay, so right now we are going to actually, before that, create a wrapper which will simply choose between which widget to go to, which routes to go to. So go into screens, add a new file, and this time it will be called wrapper.dart. And this will be a stateless widget. So simply call it that. It will be called wrapper. So you can give it that name. And there we go. Now we have to import all of the normal libraries, so material.dart and things like that. I believe that should be enough. Okay, and now this widget will just be listening to the changes from the user, which come from here on off-state changes, because it will trigger anytime the off-state changes, and it will decide which routes to go to. So in this case, instead of a return container, we are going to remove it, and we are going to say final user equals to provider of user model like so, of open the bigger and smaller than signs, pass along user model and import it, make sure you do, and then context. And right now provider hasn't been imported, so go to quick fix and import it really quickly. And then we are going to say if user equals to null, then show off system routes, which we are going to create in a second, or better yet, we have it already created. But if the user isn't null, then show, and in here is off main system routes, which is the feed, the profile page, everything like that will be contained inside here. So that's what we are going to create right now, the main system routes. So we are going to create a new folder and call it main, and create a new file and call it home. Home.dart, better yet. So let's rename it to home.dart. Okay, so this home.dart will just be a stateless widget for now. We won't worry about it. So let's just call it home, like so. Then we have to import everything. So import material.dart, which is necessary for this. And in here, we'll just have a text saying home. Nothing really fancy. We just want to see the change between the off-system routes to the main system routes. So in here, we'll return the sign up widget. For now, we'll leave it like this. We are not going to do anything fancy. We are just going to change the name later on so that it isn't sign up when in fact it has everything from the off system. And then we have the main system, which in this case will be home. Click auto imports, and there we go. Now, if we are logged in, then we should go to home. If we are not, then go to sign up. However, in here, in the main.dart, we still aren't passing on the provider, so we don't have all of the user information within our widgets. And we are going to change our main widget to wrapper. So this is going to change right now. So we are going to delete all of this because it is completely different. We are going to have a stream provider dot value, and this is the function which will handle passing along, creating a stream and passing along the data to every single widget that's down below on the tree. It will be of the type user model, again, because this is the main object, the main model, which will trigger any change within the UI, major change, so changes between the routes. And then we have our value, which in this case will be of service.user. Okay, so this is our function that we just created moments ago. Let's come in here, this function right here. Okay, so now I'm going to give it some spacing here, remove this part, add the comma, and it will auto indent that, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, now we are going to create the child. The child will be just like we had before, or pretty much the same. It will be a material app, which will have the home, not like this, home, which will be our wrapper. because remember, our wrapper decides everything about the state of the app, so it is really important. And in here, it isn't actions. It created a bunch of things for me that I didn't want. So save that. And we are going to do the quick fix in order to import the library that we want. So import library package Twitter, and what comes after that. Now, when we save it, we go automatically to home. And why is that? Well, I was already logged in, and because of that, it automatically assumed that I wanted to go to home because it triggered this function, and it saw that the user is different from null. Okay, so it is working, really awesome. Now we want to do one final thing, which is the sign up, just so that we can make sure everything is working nicely. And for this, we are going to go down below in the auth.dart and create yet another feature, which will be for signout. It will be an async function yet again, and we are going to say try, because it is a try catch e. Let's just write the boilerplate code and be done with it. Print e.toString. Again, this is just for testing purposes, so that if anything goes wrong, we know what went wrong. We are going to return null if the catch is triggered, but if it isn't triggered, then we'll say, or better yet, the main part of the try will be return await auth.signout. This is a really simple function, and Firebase handles everything for us. So when we call signout, all of our user tokens will be destroyed, and the user will be effectively signed out. And when that happens, hopefully this state change will be triggered, and because this will be null, user won't be different from null, user will be null, then it will return null. And then in the wrapper, this will be triggered and we will return to the sign up page. Okay, so for now, we are just going to go into home.dart and add a button in order to sign out. So let's do something really simple. Let's do a scaffold, which will have an app bar. And this app bar will be really simple. So we want to open this up, give it a title, and the title will be of the type text, home. And let's leave it like this, actually. It's just for the time being so that we don't waste any more time. And we need another parenthesis. There we go. And now we are going to remove this child because we'll have the logout button on the app bar. So let's learn how to do that, actually. Then we do the comma. The background color, we can leave it like that. We are not going to worry about it. We are going to have actions. Actions in the app bar, we are able to create buttons which on pressed will trigger something. In this case, the sign out. So it is really awesome and something that you should keep in mind for things like that, interactions like this. It is actually really good. So it will be of the type widget because it may contain a lot of buttons, and all of them must be of the type widget. In this case, it will be a flat button, which on pressed will trigger the sign out. So as we might remember from when we did the signup.dart, we must first import the auth service. And it will be auth service, which is equal to auth service. Okay, like that. And then on pressed, we'll simply say auth service dot sign out. That's as easy as that. We don't need to worry about anything else. However, we might want to make it look a bit better and give some parameters, which will make it easy for the user to see the button. So in this case, we'll give it a label. And again, if you hover over a flat button, you are able to see, not like that, you are able to see which parameters you can change. So we have text color, you have a lot of things which will all be in here. Okay, so the label will be text logout or sign out. Let's do it sign out because we are using that name for our app. Okay, sign out. Then we can have an icon for the user to easily see it. And let's say icon, which again is a really cool widget native to Flutter. Icons dot person. If we save it, then we see that there's still an error. And this is because, well, we don't have any commas in here. So let's add those. And in here, it is supposed to be parentheses, async, and now wrap this on curly brackets. And after that, we simply have to do flat button.icon in order for us to gain access to these parameters. So if we hover over icon, we see that we are going to get all of the things that we changed right now. The label, the icon should be in here. There we go, which are both widgets. And that's because why we are using text and icon. So now I'm going to rerun the app and let's see if it checks out. And there is an error in the home.dart because a comma is missing, so let's add it, and there we go, the sign out appears. It should be white, but for now we are going to leave it like that, and when we click it we see that we are sent back to the sign up page. And this is because if we come in here and add a print of the type user, and we see that it is null first of all when we save it, so when it reloads. And now if we try to do a sign in action. Let's do sign in gmail.com. I believe that's the account that we have right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we sign in, let's give it some time. Okay, it gives an error because it says that the user already exists for that email. Let's see in here. Yeah, we are calling sign up for the sign in as well. So let's change that. Now doing sign in yet again. We are logged in and we see that an instance of user model is print. This is print from the wrapper. So this is not doing much else. It is just saying that it is an instance of user model. So if we did toString, for example, then it would write down everything that we know about the user model. And when we sign out, then it is null. So it is working. We have our system working. Everything is as it should be. It is now easier to move between routes and everything is structured out in a way where it makes it easy to reach the HTTP request, the Firebase request, and makes it easy to, and we separate the codes so that we don't have any logic within our widgets, which is really cool. So that's all for today. Thank you all so much for watching. We have a working app now. We are able to move on from the login screen. So yeah, it is truly awesome. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this lesson, then please do subscribe and like, and follow me on every social media. So yeah, I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao.